Hello, so I'm about to watch the TV show of The Last of Us, and since I just streamed my playthrough of The Last of Us Part I, I thought that this would be kind of fun to just, as I watch the TV show, share my impressions and thoughts after each episode. Hello, this is me from the end of the video, and I just finished watching the TV series, which, wow, so good. I just wanted to come back here to the beginning of the video and let you know that this is my thoughts on each episode by episode, and full of spoilers. So if you have not already seen the TV show or played the game, but probably both, don't watch this. Go play the game, watch the TV show, and then watch this. This is just me sharing my commentary, and yeah, it's full of spoilers, which you don't want. This series is really good. If at all possible, please enjoy it without spoilers first, and then come back and watch this. So yeah, all right, bye. Okay, so here are my thoughts after watching the first episode of The Last of Us Part I. I wrote some notes so that I can remember the things that I wanted to talk about. Just kind of was just making some vague notes as I went along. I thought it was really cool that we get to see more personality from Sarah. I mean, she just has a longer portion in the than just what we see in the game, and it was good to see a little bit more of her personality, and that Tommy lives there. That was clear. I don't think that was clear in the game, so we get to know him a little bit better. So it was just nice to see more of that. I felt like Sarah was she was pretty carefree and just very you like her from the beginning, and yeah, that was really good. Pedro Pascal is Dad. Yeah, he's in The Mandalorian too, which is such a great series, and it was fun to see him in here also having a dad role. I'm excited to see more of him as Joel, because I think he seems like a great fit. It was also really interesting to see more of the neighbors, because that sets that up for that to all be way more intense when that moment happens too, and also that it was the grandma who got infected first. We got a little bit of explanation for why Sarah's alone at the beginning, which was cool. I really like all the details in everything, the stickers that she had on her table and her bed. That was just really good details in the set design and everything, and just the general post-apocalyptic vibes of after the time skip are just so good. We get a lot more world building and just to see what their everyday life is more than in the game, because that part within the quarantine zone and stuff is pretty fast. The focus is on other stuff and action, so getting to have a little bit more of seeing what their daily life is or they also just did a really good job condensing it into that. I think maybe some of that stuff is in the game too, but the emphasis is not on it, so I think in the TV show form you really see it. Just the things like the dust and the air and the atmospheric shots, I'm so weak for that post-apocalyptic atmosphere. It was really good. Yeah, everything's so grungy, and it was interesting too that they changed it from guns in the game to the batteries, the main focus, and I think that makes sense, and it all ties in really well, and that's just an easier thing to do for this. So yeah, I thought that made sense, plot change. Other thing, Tess is so cool in this. She was cool in the game too, but I feel it took longer to get to know her and to like her character, but then here she's so cool, she's so intimidating. You can tell that she is in charge, and just wow, yeah, I really like the way that they portrayed her in here. It's great. And Ellie too is just I don't know, the snippets that they show of these characters, the way they've condensed this all into one episode, I'm really they did such a great job of having the characters' personalities come across, and I'm pretty impressed with that. An interesting thing is that going into this, I definitely saw the first images when you first pull up this TV series on the streaming service. You see the pictures of the characters, and you go as a cosplayer, I'm okay, with makeup or whatever and stuff, you can definitely make these people look more like they do in the game. It's definitely possible. And even their outfits and stuff are not the same as in the game. And so that at first I was why wouldn't you do that? But I think in the end, the most important thing is that the atmosphere and the personality and stuff comes across, and that all really, really does. So I think, yeah, like pretty quickly I got over the initial, like, why don't they look more like they do in the game thing. But yeah, just like from my own personal perspective, that is like a question that popped up in my mind at first. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be like, already you just get so immersed in the world that it's not like a big deal after a bit. But yeah, it's really good. It's really nicely done, and I'm impressed with what I have seen so far, so I can't wait to watch more. Yeah, that's all that I have for my first thoughts, but this is great. Also, these little video clips of me talking about my reactions to this, these are not going to be amazingly filmed. It's going to be very spontaneous like this, just me holding my smartphone talking about stuff. Lighting is terrible, whatever. I just want to do this just for fun. So yeah, don't expect this to be high quality. I just want to talk about this show because I'm excited about it. So yay. All right, bye. And one more thing that I forgot to say is that Sarah's death was really well acted in this. Like, wow. It was intense in the game, but like, I think you don't have quite that connection to her yet. It wasn't enough for, I mean, it's sad and tragic, but like, it doesn't quite have that connection. I'm not sure if it's just because I played the game and I also like know Joel better now that hit harder, but yeah, I don't know if you can see that my eyeliner is smudged after crying over that scene, because it was depicted really, really well in this TV series, and yeah, like, I actually cried, like, wow. Amazing acting. All right, so thoughts after episode 2. I have my little tripod thing and light here because I was streaming earlier, but yeah, this episode started off with the part in Jakarta, which I think, like, you really feel the scope of this whole pandemic. Like, yeah, seeing it happen across the world and stuff was a really good touch to add in for the world building. And I also feel like this, like The Last of Us or any zombie apocalypse thing, feels so much more real after COVID. Like, on one hand, I'm kind of glad I didn't see this before COVID, or I would have been even more scared. COVID felt enough like a zombie apocalypse as it was at the beginning, which is why I made my zombie game. Link in the description. But yeah, I really also love the opening with the fungus growing. I mean, it was just, I forgot to mention that after the first episode. Like, that's so well done. Other random personal thing, I'm so happy whenever I see Ellie's backpack show up, because I'm like really fond of her backpack after making it. The details on theirs are pretty good too. The city ruins look so good in all the shots. I'm just such a fan of that sort of environment, and I was really happy to see, like, when they're walking through that area and stuff, it just all looks so cool. I think another thing that, like, yeah, there's just, it's so well done, and there's so much more, like, the world is so much more fleshed out. The thing about the bombing in Indonesia, and then also that happened, like, in Boston and stuff, and just really tying that all in is just so good. Ellie is great. I think her, like, just her personality really shines here, and it's so good. I want to know how they made the sets for things, just like as watching them walk through those abandoned areas and stuff, it looks like it'd be so fun to work on something like that. And this series really just does feel so American. Like, I felt it the whole time I was playing the game, but like watching it too, it is very American. And it's kind of fun to see that, like, especially Joel and Tess seem like people that, like, I would know from Alaska. That's where I'm from. But yeah, I like how American it feels, which is funny because I'm usually like watching anime and Japanese stuff. But yeah, it's nostalgic, I suppose. And I was really impressed with how faithful the locations are to the game. Like, they look so good. Like the museum location and stuff, all the cordyceps growing inside was really cool, but also just like the cases and display cases and everything, like, it looks exactly like the game. That is really, really cool. So I'm watching this on Unext, which, like, they have the dub and sub versions, and of course, obviously, I'm watching the sub version, so it's English audio, but it has Japanese subtitles on by default, and I can't turn them off or change them to English subtitles. It's really funny watching that because the Japanese subs are so bland. Like, I mean, there are things that come across in the translation in different ways, but overall, like, yeah, so much just does not come across. Like, it is really just best to watch media in the language that it's supposed to be in. One thing that I thought was really funny was that, like, there's a scene where Tess is like, holy shit, and it becomes yade yade in Japanese, and that, I don't know, that just killed me. That was really funny. The part with the clickers was so good. So, like, the first clicker even showing up, it didn't need to be a jump scare. And I'm so glad, I mean, personally, I also hate jump scares, so I'm really glad that there were no jump scares in this episode at all. But the slow suspense of hearing it come down the hallway and then seeing it, and it's not even in focus at first, and then it showing up, and then also again when Joel is like trying to reload his gun, and you see it down the hallway, and then they pan over a little bit, and it's, you can tell that it's out of the frame, but you know it's going to be right there. But instead of it like even having a jump scare when it pans back, the camera just pans back slowly, and there's that suspense and that waiting, and Joel being really silent as he can be. And I think that's just so much more interesting in terms of a horror series too than the normal just like jump scare. So I'm really happy that there's no jump scares, and I feel like this is a way cooler way of presenting that being scary. It doesn't need jump scares to be scary. Yeah, just really love their choice of actor for Joel. I don't know if he was like in The Mandalorian before or after this. I mean, I guess during, but yeah, he just fits this role really well, and I'm super happy that he's in it. Oh, back to the clickers. Yeah, it just, that part where they're like sneaking past the tables and stuff just really feels just like the game, and that was cool. I thought it was interesting that they added the bit about Ellie getting bitten again, but I think that was necessary to kind of like prove that, you know, it's real. And I think it definitely helps convince Tess. Tess is also like so well acted in this, and I think you get to know her better than, and you know, like faster than in the game. And yeah, that was just, everything about her was really well done. And the whole thing too about like that the cordyceps is like super long, and if you step on a patch of it somewhere, it might wake up some zombies in another area. That also wasn't in the game, right? But that was pretty interesting. I wonder if they'll like do other stuff with that later. Also, watching Tess get infected was like so much more gross in this than, you know, how just like the way things happen in the game. But yeah, the acting is really good. Her death scene, and you know, when the building blows up and then you look back at Joel and Ellie and their reactions and everything, like, wow, yeah, just, it's really, really well acted. It's so faithful to the game so far, and that's what I've heard from everybody who's watched it and told me about it. So yeah, I continue to be very impressed. I am enjoying this a lot. It's great. All right, so thoughts after episode 3 of The Last of Us TV series. I'm gonna go in order of what the notes that I wrote, but like, wow is all I have to say. I like that they kind of introduced Frank before you get there, because in the game he was just like, nobody talked about him before you get to Bill's place. So the fact that it's built up more, like, I mean, even Tess mentions Frank. At the very beginning, I really like how brave Ellie is to just like go into that cellar and look around and stuff. And also something that doesn't come up in the game, but nice world building for here. Of course, like pads and tampons would be really hard to find in the zombie apocalypse. Just like something you don't think about, but yeah, that's important stuff. Ellie killing that zombie in the cellar too was also like, whoa. And I was glad that we got more explanation about the fungus being transmitted through the food supply, because that's not something that came up in the game like at all, right? I don't remember that at all. But that makes sense, like how it spread so quickly rather than just people biting each other. And then also that we got more backstory about like what Fedra did and how many people they killed when the outbreak started. I think just the way that the series does more flashbacks and stuff, you really get a sense of the world so much more. Getting to know Bill, and knowing that he's like one of the people who just had that sort of cellar in his house before anything even happened, you kind of understand the depth of his paranoia more. And I really enjoyed watching the scenes of him watching the scenes where you're watching him loot the town. yeah, that's what you do if you're alone in that situation, and he really made the most of it. But I was like so impressed that he had his little normal like dinner in his house, steak dinner with fancy, it was just so fancy, while he watches his traps catch zombies outside. Like he made the best of what his situation for sure. And then seeing Bill and Frank meeting and getting to know each other, and then finding comfort in each other was just wow. Yeah, it was really nice watching that, you know, as this world is falling apart outside, having them have that moment of connection, and then watching Bill trust Frank was just a really beautiful moment. And then fancy lunch with Tess and Joel, that was really nice too. Like, they were friends, and you can see that. It was just really interesting to see that backstory. The scene where they're enjoying the strawberries had me crying because that was just so sweet. And you can really see how much Bill cares for Frank, and that just makes it so much harder when you know what's coming, or I thought I knew what was coming based on the game. But it turns out I actually had no idea what was coming. Just before we get to that, though, that intensity of that moment when Frank is helping clean Bill's wound from the gunshot too. That was like, wow. Yeah, just really beautifully filmed and stuff. But Frank's last day was so heartbreaking. Oh my God. I mean, there was no good way for that to end. And Frank was asking a lot of Bill, but wow, I really, really felt for Bill, and I cried so much. There are so many tissues everywhere. Oh my God. That they exchanged rings and had their own little marriage. And I think another really nice thing about the way this was filmed is in that first scene when they have a meal together, they're sitting on opposite ends of that really long table. And then during Frank's last dinner, Frank and Bill's last dinner, he's sitting in the same chair that he was when he was, you know, a guest, but Bill has moved over, and just like that choice in terms of the cinematography, that just the way they set up that shot, yeah, that was like, wow, it says a lot. I thought that was really nicely done. I definitely saw it coming that Bill was also going to try to kill himself at the end, but I thought he was going to survive. Just because I expected it to go the same route as the game. But I think what they did with this was really good. And so much more sad than in the game. And just Ellie and Joel arriving then in town, and as soon as Joel sees that the flowers are dead, that he knows something's up, like that, yeah, because Bill and Frank would be taking care of stuff like that, and you just know instantly that he knows. The melted candles when they opened the door, the wine glasses still on the table. Of course, yeah, at that point, I think I still thought that Bill was alive. But yeah, then Bill's letter, and in Bill's letter talking about use these supplies to keep Tess safe just brings back all the stuff about Tess from the previous episode and makes that all even more sad, and yeah, more parallels and things like, wow. I was happy to see Ellie get her red shirt from the box of clothes at Bill and Frank's house. I'm like really fond of that shirt after having made it. I don't know, everything about that cosplay, because I made it and then spent so much time weathering it and stuff. I'm just very attached to all the things that I made for that cosplay. Then Ellie getting in the truck and thinking that it's cool and that seatbelts were cool was really good. It's so cute when we get to see those carefree, happy moments from Ellie where she's getting to experience something for the first time. But then, so the truck drives away and they pan back through the window, and it's an open window, and you know that that's the bedroom. And yeah, they really went and made this episode as heartbreaking as possible. So I think I'm going to go buy some ice cream now. But yeah, this is really, really well done. All right, it's time for episode 4 thoughts. First thing was that in this episode, you really see like Joel warming up to Ellie, and both of them just getting along better. From the very start when Joel is trying to explain like how a siphon works, and then of course the pun book. It was just so great to see, like, at first Joel's acting annoyed, but then still, like, you can see that he's smiling about it. And then later Ellie asks him, and, like, he's able to come up with the answer to the pun. And then that last one where they're laughing together, like, watching them laugh together, I think that's the first time that's happened. But that was such a nice moment, and made me really happy. The road trip scenery was really cool. Just again, this post-apocalyptic aesthetic is so good. Yeah, it was really fun watching as they did their road trip. And we also like get some more backstory about like why he went to Boston, because I don't think that was in the game either. But yeah, that why he and Tommy went to Boston. And there's also more build up with like Henry showing up, because he's mentioned by the looters. What were they called? I don't entirely remember, but that group of people, like they mention, there's so much more about Henry. So it kind of builds up to him actually showing up. We know that he's going to show up. And yeah, the whole thing about like Ellie shooting that guy, Joel like clearly felt way worse about that situation here than in the game, and you know, he wasn't quite so angry. I mean, even in the game, he was, you know, he was grudgingly thankful, but he was not as soft as we see him being this early in the drama series. You know, he's talking more. He says that he's sorry that she had to experience that, and yeah, that was just like, wow. We see a lot of progress on him opening up that way. And it was a really nice moment of him showing her how to hold the gun too. That was a good part of the game as well. I feel like it was nice to see their connection there. Yeah, just seeing more about like what's going on with the enemy group as well. And then I think that's a bloater that's going to show up, and just like, yeah, how, I don't know, giving a little foreshadowing to those things. Last point that I wanted to mention was that when they're walking up the stairs of that apartment, like their flashlight light shines through the beams of the stairs, and that cinematography was just really nice. I liked it. But yeah, Sam and Henry show up at the end of this episode, which means that we know what's coming in the next episode. So even though I want to watch it now, I think I need to give myself an emotional break and wait until tomorrow for that. All right, so we made it to episode 5, which is the Sam and Henry episode, and here are my thoughts. Sam wasn't that young in the game, right? He's like 8 here, but I thought he was a little bit older in the game, like younger than Ellie, but much closer in age. But yeah, like between him being younger and then also just like he has such big eyes and he seems like such a cute and innocent kid, you really want to protect him, and I feel like that just comes across even more with the actor that they chose. I like that they added more detail to the world. For example, Sam being deaf and communicating with sign language was a really like interesting detail to add, and it makes their whole world more like diverse and interesting, and shows like different ways that people, you know, exist and survive within this world. In fact, sign language makes a lot of sense for communicating in a situation when you also have to be quiet. So yeah, was a good detail as well. Henry is such a good big brother, like giving him the crayons and drawing together and giving him the face paint to help him feel brave. Like their relationship was shown so much more here, and yeah, it was just, those extra details were really good. I noticed that Henry has the same type of flashlight that Ellie has in the game, which is a Streamlight Survivor. And I was surprised to see that it is bigger than I expected it to be, because I've like looked at them online. But that makes sense why they gave Ellie a different like type of flashlight in this drama series than that one, because that would be too big. It was, yeah, I didn't expect it to be that big. So the flashlight that she has, I think, suits her better, because the other one would be too big, but that explains the change. So yeah, it was interesting to know a little bit more about Henry's backstory too, that he was a Fedra collaborator, and then later on we hear more about all of that too. Just gonna go in the order that I wrote things here. Yeah, just there's a lot of changes that show the variety of people that live in this world. There's a scene where they go down into the tunnel, and their flashlight lights are shining all at different heights and with slightly different colors, and that was just also a really nicely done scene. Kids' room in the tunnel, so accurate, all the details and everything to the game. And it's just really nice watching the kids bond over comics, and Ellie learn some sign language, learning more about Henry's backstory and the things that he had to do to help Sam. And then as soon as you get to that part, you learn what's up with Kathleen was her name. Until then, you're getting bits and pieces of why capturing Henry means so much to her, but then it kind of all comes together, and you understand her motive. She is a really scary character. She's not the usual type of scary character, but you can see how her grief has changed her and made her the way that she is, and that was really well done, and very you can imagine that there'd be a lot of people like that in this world. The sniper part being at night was pretty intense. And my thought watching that initially was that wow, it was so much easier for Joel to get through that area and get into the house than it was when I played it. I died so many times in that area. Oh my God. Watching Ellie shoot at the truck, she really is always doing her best. And then the infected suddenly showing up from underground, which on one hand was just wow, convenient timing, but on the other hand was really cool to see this large scale battle between the zombies and humans. And then the bloater is pretty impressive and scary. Joel sniping from above and trying to keep Ellie safe, while she's in the car and everything. You can feel his panic as he's trying to shoot everything super accurately, which is how you feel while you're playing the game. And I think they did a good job of bringing that across. Also, this is in the game there were no child zombies, and I was glad, because that would be scary. But yeah, we had a clicker child in this episode, and yikes. I was glad to see Ellie stabbing clickers though, because that hadn't come up yet, and I feel that's a pretty big part of the game as well. So and it was cool that she actually saved Henry and Sam. I think the last 2 episodes before this didn't have as many zombies, and then seeing this whole swarm of them really shows you again the power of the zombies right after you kind of forget about them for a little while, because we're focusing on the humans for the last few episodes. Didn't expect Sam to show Ellie that he got bitten, but that whole scene was more sad too, because Ellie's trying to save him using her blood and then promising to stay awake with him. I think that leads into this whole thing about Ellie, feeling sort of responsible that she wasn't able to do more. And that note after they dig the graves that she left to say that she's sorry, you can see, that she feels so much more responsibility for that than she did in the game, or that we saw that she did in the game. And that was also really well done. So those are my episode 5 thoughts. Okay, so after the episode that I watched yesterday, I was busy doing other stuff, and I totally forgot to record my thoughts. So here they are. This episode happens in winter rather than fall. The timeline's moving a little bit differently. And it was interesting to see more interaction with other people, those old people who lived in the cabin. It makes sense that Ellie and Joel would encounter other people along the way, and so it's kind of interesting to see what those interactions are like. The part about Joel not feeling well, I was curious if they were going to do some kind of he has a health condition kind of thing going on, but then no, it was flashbacks and dreams rather than a heart problem. Which makes sense. Joel's expressions as Ellie talks are really fun to watch, because he's still a little bit closed off, but he's giving Ellie a little bit more of a chance to talk, and he's confused but interested and just kind of fascinated by what she has to say. And it's interesting watching his expressions, because you can tell he's such a dad. Him trying to reassure Ellie that she can be a cure. I didn't expect that she would admit that she knew that Sam was infected. But that kind of builds up to you wondering whether once they get to the Fireflies, whether they're actually going to be able to do anything. It puts that doubt there, which I think, at least in the game when I was playing, I was so focused on getting there that I didn't really think too much about whether or not it would actually work. You just hope that it will. I mean, there's doubt, but I think this is kind of doing a little bit more foreshadowing that way. The settlement looks so much more like a normal town. I mean, I guess in the game you just go to kind of the power plant area, and they, had just gotten it working in the game, where in the series you actually see what it's like once they've had power for a while and their town is really established. And it was just like shockingly normal, and like people have clean clothes and stuff. The details were really nice. Like you can see that that's a pretty normal town. They even had pumpkin pie. Like, wow. I noticed that giraffe plushies have been a reoccurring theme, and I think they were in the game too. But like now that I know the significance of giraffes, I'm noticing them more. But I like that like they've showed up in several locations now. The conversations between Joel and Tommy, and then like Joel's conversation with Ellie were both like so much more intense. I mean, I think they were really well done in the game, but the emotions just come across so well because the acting in this is so good. And so that was, yeah, those are just really well done scenes, especially like the part with Joel like breaking down and crying. That was just so, yeah. They took out the scene of like Ellie running away, which I think makes sense to just kind of condense that down. It wasn't really necessary, and they still fit that important conversation in just fine. So I think that worked really well. And then Joel teaching Ellie how to use the rifle, and just how that comes right after kind of their argument, and you see that that's kind of the turning point, and that was in the game too, and it's just a good moment, done well in the game or the series. The abandoned university looks really good. I'm so curious how they did that. Like, is part of that the actual university that is like, I don't know, or is it all set in CG? Like, what? How did they do that? But it must have been fun to like make the sets. I like looking at the backgrounds and seeing how dirty they are and how much stuff is scattered around, and like going, wow, that's, you know, it's a lot of work to make something look messy enough. And so I think, I don't know, behind the scenes looks fun for this. I wish they'd gone a little bit slower through the university, because that part was pretty fast, where for me, like playing the game, I felt like that part was pretty significant. And like hearing the doctor's recordings and stuff. Yeah, it's not super necessary to the overall plot, but I did really like that part of the game a lot, so I wish they'd gone slightly more slowly through here. The way that Joel got stabbed was way more plausible than in the game. Like, more plausible that he would survive something like that. But it just didn't have the same impact as in the game. Like, in the game, that fall is so, like, yikes, and then, you know, the scene where he's trying to run away, and you're playing as him, and you're trying to run away, and he's just barely making it. Like, that's, yeah, that was such a intense moment, and I feel like this didn't quite have that same impact. Also, he pulled out the shard of the baseball bat that was stuck in him. Like, if you get stabbed, you don't pull it out. I feel like we already had some scenes like that before in this, and you know that you don't pull something out if you get stabbed. So I was like, Joel, what are you doing? You should know better than that. But yeah, still, the feeling when he falls off the horse, that part is the same. I feel like the worry and everything there is conveyed really well. So yeah, those were my thoughts on this episode, and now I'm going to watch another one. All right, bye. All right, episode 7 thoughts. So in the game, Joel is like unconscious from the time that they get to that place where they're hiding, but here he's conscious and tells Ellie to leave, and like watching the look on his face as he thinks she's actually going to leave, like, wow. It was cool that we got to see a little bit more of the Fedra school, and also kind of we get a better idea of what Ellie's life is like there, that she gets bullied and Riley is usually the one to take care of it. But also we just see more of Fedra, and that like the guy at the school really believes that what Fedra is doing is right, and he's just trying to do the best he can, and also encouraging Ellie too. Then Ellie's room, that there were dinosaur drawings on the wall, the other volume of the pun book, her reading the comics there too, just all the things on her wall and stuff. I don't know, it really, yeah, builds out the world and all these things. I love that Ellie loves dinosaurs. That's just such another good thing within The Last of Us. When Riley comes back, it doesn't sound like they had a huge argument before Riley left, like it does in the game. Like in the game, it was really clear that they had an argument and then Riley left. Here, it sounds like Riley just kind of disappeared, and Ellie was more worried about, like, I mean, well, she was obviously worried in the game, but like she had no idea what happened here. As they're leaving to go to the mall, Ellie's saying that she'd like to keep her other eyebrow in one piece. I like how that little detail, I don't remember that line in the game, but that hints to other stories of things that she and Riley have experienced together. And yeah, I don't know, this is just a good little detail. It was also much clearer that Riley was older here. I mean, she even says that she's almost 17, where in the game I felt like they were a little bit closer in age. So yeah, I didn't realize there was that much of an age difference, but I think it works really well within this series. And as they're like running along the tops of the houses and stuff, you can see that they are just such a good duo and would get into so much trouble together. One thing that this episode really did as opposed to the game was like give us way more background about the Fireflies versus Fedra. And there's a lot more tension there in terms of like Ellie and Riley too. Each believing that the cause that they're joining is what's right. It also sounds more like Riley just panicked once she got her assignment, I mean, understandably. But she left and then ended up joining the Fireflies rather than specifically going to try to find the Fireflies and join them. I thought in the game she was trying to join them. Am I remembering that right? And the scene with the lights turning on in the mall was so cool, that perspective as Ellie is watching all the lights turn on. Love the escalator part and Ellie just having fun. It's so good to see her having fun. The mall set was also amazing. I love the doodles on the signs and things. And then, of course, we see Ellie and Riley's interactions and, like, Ellie fixing her hair and being a bit shy. It's just so good. We get to see so many more sides of Ellie in this one little bit that don't, like, show up as much in other times. It's just really good. The merry-go-round was great, especially Ellie's smile. Yeah, she just has such a good smile. It's so great when she's happy. The photo booth was cute, and the panic of them trying to take photos really fast. That was even more fun in the game, but it was cute here too. And then Riley and Ellie playing games together. In the game, I really liked what they did with it being broken and like Riley helping her imagine what it would be like to play the game. I thought that was really cool, but also watching them play games together here was really cute. And then you can just see there's so many scenes of Ellie like thinking way too hard. It's cute. And then the pun book and them laughing together. That part was also so cute. I'm almost cried again. I love seeing them happy. Yeah, more tension, of course, when Ellie finds the bombs. That was a detail that wasn't in the game. And then also, like, Ellie, like, leaving and then coming back. I was worried what they were going to do at the end there and whether they were going to, like, really deviate from how things were in the game. But they just kind of did things in a different order and had the Halloween story at the end. But I think that order in that all made sense. Also, we don't get the backstory in the game. I'm pretty sure that, like, about Riley having had a family and how joining the Fireflies is partially because she wants to feel chosen and like she has a family again. And I think this series does such a good job of giving us more of a sense of people's motives for doing things too, and I think that's really interesting to see. And then the fun of them dancing in the Halloween store just like really had the same vibe as the game. I love the part with them dancing. And then of course the kiss, it's so good. And Ellie's smile afterwards, also so good. The zombie fight was pretty intense. I kind of like that it was just one zombie here rather than running away from a horde of zombies. Like, in the game, for the purposes of the game, it makes more sense to be running away from a bunch of zombies, but this intense fight with one zombie, I thought was really good for the series. Because it's just one zombie, and you think that they won. And then that moment when they realize that they're both bitten, and the quietness of that moment. And them sitting there together as they think they're going to become zombies. That scene was really well acted too. And the way the series cuts back to Ellie searching the house, and then like the parallel of Joel holding her hand in the same way that like she and Riley were holding hands. Like, yeah, I think this series also, the way that it's shot, does a good job with a lot of these parallels. Man, Ellie is really doing her best. She is always just doing her best. I'm so impressed with her, and I feel so bad for her that she has to be in these situations. But yeah, wow, she is resilient. So yeah, 2 more episodes left after this. All right, so here are my thoughts on episode 8, which What an episode. So, first of all, the winter town, that town, I forget the name of the resort already, Silver Lake, looks just like in the game. Amazing location for that. And I don't remember all the like Bible stuff being in the game. It wasn't a thing that David was a preacher, right? Because the way that all ties in definitely adds another level of creepy. And yeah, I don't remember that being in the game. David's face also looks really similar to in the game. I'm not sure if I'm just like remembering that or if it's just that this actor does such a good job of portraying the character, but he really felt similar. Like aside from his hair color, yeah, he looked very much like David, I thought. I was kind of surprised that there was no bow and arrow for Ellie, but it also makes sense. As we know from my playthrough, it was very hard to hunt the deer with the bow and arrow, and the gun would probably be a little bit easier. And also, like, Joel hasn't had a bow and arrow. So, like, story-wise, makes sense, but, like, I am a fan of Ellie with the bow and arrow. This whole episode looked really cold. They did a good job of making that cold come across. I don't know, just looked really, really cold. I'm glad I'm sitting here in my warm kotatsu watching it. Yeah, Ellie's so brave. Also kind of a terrible idea to try to approach those two, but, I mean, she does the best she can with the information she's got at the moment. Yeah, the scene of Ellie meeting David and James is just like in the game, and just in general, a lot of these parts in the game, this episode were just like so faithfully done to the compared to how they're in the game. Like, it's the same. Yeah, the whole thing about David being a preacher, and he makes such a good transition from friendly to creepy so easily over the course of this episode, like him going back and forth between being totally creepy and then still trying to like win Ellie over. Yikes. I think it's clearer earlier on that meat is not venison. I'm not sure because I have the Japanese version of the game, which is a bit censored, I have heard. So I think there might be some things that are in the main version of the game that are not in mine. So I'm not sure if some of those things are things that like other people would have seen having played other region versions of The Last of Us, or if it just wasn't in the game, but I thought some of the things about that were a little bit more clear. Yeah, just David's like control and cruelty is much more apparent. In the scene where they're all eating food too, I think there's this like wondering of like, do they know? And you can definitely see that some people probably know and some people don't, which yeah, was explained later on too, but yeah, that was pretty yikes, really well done. So disgusting. Part with Joel alone in the house. I don't remember that part where he kills the first guy. It was interesting to see that moment that he wakes up. But the part with Ellie getting captured is just like the game. The part with Joel capturing the guys was just like the game. Yeah, there's just so many parts that were just like exactly the way they were. Yeah, David is just so manipulative, and that conversation about being shown the truth by the cordyceps and saying that it's fruitful because it loves, like, that was so creepy. Excellent addition. I think I really like how they added more depth to his character. I mean, I like it because I hate him. They really did a good job of making you absolutely hate him. He's terrible. He is such a creep, and the way that he keeps trying to get Ellie on his side. Ellie's escape scene was really intense. Wow. And yeah, just David's acting is so scary. You really see the full depth of how awful he is, and like the cannibalism part of if they are in fact people who've already died of other causes. I mean, who knows if that's how true some of that is, but like if that's the case, then that is not nearly the worst part of David's personality. Like, yikes. And you can really feel how scared and angry Ellie is in that scene where she's killing him. And I feel like they made that scene last slightly longer than in the game. And I kept waiting for Joel to show up, being like, okay, where's Joel? Where's Joel? And he didn't show up. And I think in some ways those changes kind of keep things fresh for people who have already played the game, because the emotions in those scenes are just as intense as when you first play the game. Because, you know, I'm waiting for Joel to show up because that scene is so intense. And then the moment that he shows up and it all goes quiet and, he's there to comfort her, but it doesn't happen here. And so you're watching and it's, even more stressful because what you're waiting for doesn't happen in this. So yeah, I think that just really, in some ways it keeps it a fresh experience for people who've already played the game. And you feel those moments just as strongly. But yeah, Joel meeting her outside and then putting his coat on her and helping her walk away, and just her eyes look so dead in that scene. Again, very well acted, and it was all very intense. I have so much empathy for Ellie in that scene, how scared she must have been and everything, and I think they really portray that well, so that it's really well done. Definitely an intense episode, and I think it's time for another ice cream break. So yeah, one more episode to go. This series is amazing. I'm really impressed with how well done it is. All right, I finished the TV series, so here are my thoughts. I did not expect the beginning of this episode at all, with that, I was like, this lady is about to give birth, how are they gonna tie this in? And then I was starting to wonder if it was Ellie's mom, and then they showed the knife, and I was just like, oh wow, yep, that's Ellie's mom. And so I was really interested that this gives us an explanation then for why Ellie is immune, because the game doesn't go into that at all, at least the first part 1 of the game doesn't. So I'm curious, is that a thing from part 2 that they decided to put in here already, or is it just they just added an explanation for the TV show and that's never mentioned in the game? But yeah, wow, Ellie's mom is really tough. You can see where she gets it from. And because they put that in the beginning, you get to see that part with Marlene finding Ellie. And I was watching that going, oh man, that's going to make this episode so much sadder, because we actually get to see some of her attachment to Ellie. Because you know that she's known Ellie since Ellie was a baby, but you don't know a lot, or that, you don't understand her connection with Ellie's mom, and just the game doesn't go into that. So I was watching that going, oh yeah, that's going to be so much worse. And yeah, feel bad for Marlene having to kill Ellie's mom as well. Then we cut back to the part with Joel and Ellie. That scene where they're on the road outside of Salt Lake City, that just looks just like the game. I am always so impressed how perfectly they've recreated those scenes. It's crazy. But yeah, Joel trying to cheer Ellie up. He was just being so talkative and really trying to be such a dad, and it's just such a good, he's trying so hard. It's good to see that. And poor Ellie, she's so out of it. I was thinking, just about this series in general, and overall there's relatively few zombies compared to the game. And in a lot of ways there doesn't need to be, because there's enough that it sets it up for, you know what the world is and you know what's out there, and they don't need to show as many zombie fights. They also took that out of the winter part when she's running away with David and they have to fight off a bunch of zombies. I remember that because that was hard, but yeah, they didn't need to show that as part of this story, but you still know that the zombies are out there and just how terrifying they are. So it's kind of interesting. The other thing about not really having to show that many zombies is that there's a lot more emphasis on the people in the world, both getting to know those people and understanding their motives, fully understanding the depth of how scary the people are in addition to the zombies. And yeah, there's just a lot more focus on the people in the world, which I think, yeah, was good. There's no scene with the generator either, I realized, which I feel like everybody talks about that as being such an iconic scene in the game, but it was kind of interesting that that didn't come up in here. The giraffe scene was great. Also, just like the game, such a beautiful moment. And I just really love how the contrast between that scene, especially so close to the horrible, horrible episode with David, this contrast between how the world still has all these beautiful things despite everything, and watching Ellie laugh and Joel smile and be relieved that Ellie is cheered up a bit. Yeah, it was just like the game. And I think later, as they are starting to head to the hospital and they have that conversation, Ellie's guilt in that line, her delivery of the line of like, after all I've done, you want to go back. Like, the emotion comes across really well here in the drama, I thought. And yeah, just watching all of this too, I feel like this series probably would have been a little too scary for me personally to watch when I was younger, but if I had seen Ellie when I was her age, she would have been like absolutely my hero. Like, yeah, I love that in so many ways she's just a totally normal 14-year-old girl, but she's so strong and determined. But then on the other hand, maybe that is one of the things that makes her a totally normal 14-year-old girl. She is just doing her best and doing what she has to. And I don't remember the conversation from the game about Joel trying to kill himself. Was that in the game? I don't think so, but I really, I appreciated him opening up and talking more about Sarah. And that was just a good conversation to add in there. But then at the end of that conversation, that line about Ellie being like, so time heals all wounds, and Joel is like, it wasn't time that did it. Like, wow, ouch, my heart. That was really nice. And another moment where I started crying because it was really good. So yeah, I do not remember that from the game. If they added that to the TV show, like, excellent addition. That was really good. And yeah, like the look on Ellie's face and the shakiness in her voice as she replies to him. So then we get to the part where they meet the Fireflies. And when you see Marlene again, she looks so tired. She looks so different than we saw her back at the beginning of the, not the game, the TV show. And I think it's a really clear, just how rough this year has been on her. I guess they didn't put in the voice recording, which I did think was a really good part of the game to get a little bit more of her feelings. But I mean, that's all conveyed in the way that she acts and looks here. And yeah, having that tie into the part at the beginning of this episode, just how hard this is for her. Watching them walk Joel down the stairs out of the hospital, I realized I was holding my breath. That's such a tense scene. And then, Joel escapes from them, shoots the guy through the window, and you can see that he is just so determined and so focused and so deadly too. You really see his skill and why people are afraid of him and why he's survived this long. Yeah, very emotional music as he kills so many fireflies, and I think they really emphasize that. And him swapping out the guns along the way both makes sense and also kind of just reminds you of the gameplay itself, which was kind of interesting. Music was very emotional in that scene. We also just need to take a break from the serious conversation to talk about the really fat elephant that was painted on the wall in the pediatric surgery ward, because that was such a cute elephant. And I don't remember if it looked exactly like that in the game, but that was a really cute elephant. It almost takes you out of the emotion and intensity of the rest of that scene for a minute, because you're like, whoa, that's the cutest fat little elephant on the wall. Anyway, please go appreciate the fat elephant. It was very cute. At least Joel didn't shoot the nurses. That's better than I did when I played the game. I only let one of them survive. I thought they were gonna attack me, that's why. But then after, when he's leaving with Ellie, that close-up of the doctor bleeding out, and that he's one of the few people, there can only be so many skilled doctors left. He's probably one of the few people who has a shot at saving humanity. And now he's dead, and I think that pause shows that too. The only thing that I was disappointed about in this episode was that we do not see the scene of him running away with Ellie. And I'm kind of sad that they took that out, because that was, for me, one of the most emotional parts of this game. That panic of him trying to rescue her, and then also him talking and trying to reassure her, even though she can't even hear him. That was just a really, really good scene in the game, and I was kind of surprised that they cut straight to him getting into the elevator and didn't show any of that. The look on Joel's face, very expressive, and then also just watching his and Ellie's expressions more carefully too, as they're he's lying, and his story is so full of things that don't add up, and Ellie knows it, and it comes across in the game, but I think just with the acting being so good here, you really see it. Ellie asking about Marlene. I don't remember if that was in the game, if she specifically asked if Marlene was okay. Their car was really shiny that they drove away in. And for a minute, it almost looks normal as they're driving this kind of too shiny car through the wilderness. It was interesting to see how normal that felt. Of course, we get Joel talking more about Sarah, maybe even a little bit more than in the game. And yeah, Ellie, her expressions are so good. She's a little confused about how to feel. And then the actual ending, just like the game, so well done, such well delivered lines. And yeah, they nailed it with this series. Like, I am so impressed at how well they adapted this from the game. It's so faithful to the game while still like the things that they changed are only made it better for the most part. Like, there's only very small things that I think they could have added that like I missed from the game, but other than that, I am like really, really impressed with how well this is adapted. Probably, yeah, everybody I've talked to about it has said that this is like the best adaptation of something into a TV show that they've ever seen, and I really feel that way too. I am really, really amazed. Excellent TV show, and I think this is just such a good story too. As you get near the end, especially in the last half of this episode, your feelings about the whole situation just change and go back and forth so much, because like you really see why all the characters have such good reasons for making the choices that they do. And that's one thing that makes it such an interesting story, is that in some ways nobody's wrong. They're just all trying to do what they need to. And of course you want to save Ellie, but of course you can totally sympathize with the Fireflies. And it's not great that Joel killed so much of the resistance. Like, you know, it's so good how it shows all of those different sides of things. But of course, yeah, we want Ellie to live, and we want Joel and Ellie to be happy, and it's a very, very well told and interesting story that definitely keeps you thinking about it afterwards. So this was great, amazing TV show. I will definitely be rewatching it again at some point. Do they have this on like a Blu-ray set or something? Because I would buy that for sure. Yeah, it was just really, really good, and I'm impressed. It's fun way to like revisit the story of The Last of Us without playing the whole game again. Although I will probably do that again at some point as well, because it's just really good. I'm happy that I still have part 2 to look forward to, and I have pretty good timing with that too as well, because like probably I'll play part 2 of the video game, and then part 2 of the drama will come out in like 2025 or something. So yeah, nice timing with that. I'm glad that I still have more of The Last of Us to look forward to. I want to make Ellie's other outfits now, and yeah, it was good. So thank you for watching this. If you've made it to the end of this video, this is just my rambling thoughts about things, but I just wanted to share because it was good, and I really enjoyed this, and it's been kind of fun doing a video like this. If you like seeing stuff like this, let me know. Maybe I'll make more. I don't know. But yeah, thank you for watching and hanging out, and all right, bye.